Kia koto, which means hello to you all in Te Reo Māori, which is the native language in New Zealand. Welcome back to my channel. If you don't know, the New Zealand borders are finally reopening. So you can travel to New Zealand if you're not a New Zealand citizen or resident. So applications for the New Zealand tourist visa will actually open from the 31st of July 2022. So that's not too far away. So if you've been thinking about traveling to New Zealand for some time now but couldn't because of COVID, then this is your opportunity. In this video, I'm gonna cover everything that you need to know about the New Zealand tourist/visitor visa and what you need to do to apply and visit this beautiful country in 2022. So let's get started. So first, what does a New Zealand visitor visa or tourist visa allow you to do? So a New Zealand tourist visa actually allows you to stay in New Zealand for up to 9 months. With a New Zealand tourist visa, you can visit your family and friends living in New Zealand, or if you want, you can just travel around New Zealand to see what this country has to offer. And it even allows you to study in New Zealand for up to 3 months. But who actually needs to apply for a New Zealand tourist visa? People from visa waiver countries can actually travel to New Zealand without having to apply for a tourist visa, but you must hold an NZeTA or New Zealand Electronic Travel Authority. So the process to get an NZeTA is different from applying for a New Zealand tourist visa, but if you fall under this category and your country is listed as one of the visa waiver countries to visit New Zealand, then I will put the links down below for where you can find more information. To give you an idea, this is the list of visa waiver countries. If your country is not on the list, then you will have to apply for a New Zealand tourist visa to be able to actually enter and travel in New Zealand. So right now, if you're from a country that's on the visa waiver list, then you can actually already come to New Zealand if you hold the NZeTA. So that's already open and people are already able to travel to New Zealand. And if you already hold a current valid New Zealand tourist visa that maybe you've applied beforehand, you can also now travel to New Zealand. But new applications for New Zealand tourist visas will not open until the 31st of July, and that also includes student visas. So if you don't have a current valid New Zealand tourist visa, then you can apply from the 31st of July. So now, what's the criteria and evidence that you need to provide in order to apply for a New Zealand tourist visa? So there's a few requirements that you need to meet. So the first one is actually proof of identity. So normally the most common type of proof of identity would be your current passport from your country of residence, and supply this as evidence of your proof of identity. The second requirement is actually being in good health. So depending on your situation, you may actually need to get an X-ray or a medical examination as proof of your good health before being able to come into New Zealand. As a general summary, if you're gonna be staying in New Zealand for less than 6 months, then you normally don't need to get a chest X-ray. But if your stay will be more than 6 months, then you will need to get a chest X-ray if you're a citizen of a country that does not have a low incidence of tuberculosis or TB, or if you spent more than 3 months in the last 5 years in a country that does not have a low incidence of TB. So the New Zealand immigration website has a full list of the countries with low incidence of tuberculosis, and I will put the link down below of where you can get this information. So if you're from one of these countries and you're gonna be staying in New Zealand for more than 6 months, then you might need to get an X-ray as proof that you are in good physical health. The third requirement is you must be in good character to be able to travel and visit New Zealand. So what this means is you may need to provide police certificates as proof of your good character. If you're age 17 or older and plan to stay in New Zealand for more than 24 months, you must provide police certificates from any country you're a citizen of, any country you've spent more than 5 years since you turned 17, if you have a criminal history or could be a risk to New Zealand, then your application may be declined. There are more details of what's required for proof of good character from the New Zealand immigration website, and there's an opportunity to give a full explanation if you think you will have some character issues. So the fourth requirement would be genuine intentions, which means that you must genuinely intend to meet the conditions of your visa. So an example would be if you're coming to New Zealand because you had a job offer, then you need to apply for a work visa rather than a visitor visa. So So this means that if you're coming here for a visitor visa, whatever the visitor visa allows you to do, you must genuinely intend to meet those conditions. So another requirement for a New Zealand visitor visa would be funds or sponsorship. So what this means is that you must have enough money to live on while you're visiting New Zealand, or that you have an acceptable sponsor. So what this means is that you must have a minimum of 1,000 New Zealand dollars per month, or 400 New Zealand dollars per month if your accommodation is already paid for. For example, if you're gonna be staying here with a family or friend. If you do have a New Zealand sponsor, then your sponsor needs to be able to provide evidence that they're able to support you. This could include their payslips, their bank statements, employment agreement, anything that proves that they're able to actually look after you while you're staying in New Zealand. Another criteria would be healthcare. So you must agree to pay for your own healthcare costs while staying in New Zealand. So that means that you won't be able to make use of the benefits such as free medical care when you're in New Zealand. So you need to agree that you're gonna pay for any of your own medical costs. It is also recommended, but not a requirement, that you have full medical insurance while you're in New Zealand. And the last but not the least is Onward travel. So the evidence could include proof that you have enough money to buy a ticket out of New Zealand, in addition to the funds that you have to live on. The website does state not to buy your ticket until your visa has been granted or that your application is approved. Alternatively, if you're being sponsored, then again your sponsor needs to provide evidence that they could look after you and that they could pay for your travel to leave New Zealand. So those are basically the requirements for a New Zealand tourist visa. Now, it could very much vary depending on the country where you're from, how long you're gonna be staying here, and any other unique circumstances that might apply to you. So if you want full information of the criteria, then make sure to follow the link down below for the New Zealand immigration website, which contains all the information that you need to know to apply for a New Zealand visitor visa. Now, what about the processing time and fees? So that could again be different depending on the country that you're coming from. But as an example, if you're coming from the Philippines and applying for a visitor visa to travel from the Philippines to New Zealand, then the application cost for you would be approximately $281, and that's on top of other fees such as passport fees and courier fees. So that depends on where you're applying. And for the processing time, it could take up to 5 months to process your application. It does state on the immigration website that 90% of applications are processed within this time frame, which is 5 months. But if you have a special circumstance or they need more information from you, then it could take longer than this. So how do you actually apply for a visitor visa? So the good news is you can actually do it all online from the New Zealand immigration website. So from here, you just go to the visitor visa category, click apply now, and it would prompt you to either log in or create what we call a Real Me login, which is used by most New Zealand government departments as a trusted source of your identity and your application. So if you don't already have a New Zealand Real Me login, then you may need to register for one, and there may be extra steps required to register, such as providing proof of your identity and actually getting verified. Once you've got that sorted, then you'll be able to apply for the visitor visa online and submit all your documents through. Once you've applied and submitted your documents online, depending on the country that you're coming from, there may also be additional steps required, such as sending your passport to one of the receiving or processing centers, and again, that's when the extra costs may apply so that your application can actually be processed. That wraps us up for everything that you need to know about the New Zealand visitor/tourist visa. So I hope that you gained some valuable information about what you need to do and what the requirements are to actually apply for a visitor visa and visit New Zealand. And I do hope that you apply and visit New Zealand soon, because we have been missing tourists here. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. My name is Jules and I create videos about my experiences, travels, and adventures here in New Zealand, and also share information about living and working here. So make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. I would really appreciate it, and I will see you next time. See ya!